I think a through line for this chapter, at least in the last one, and maybe even all of the chapters, is this idea of our peripherals, our sensory, you know, sight, touch, smell, taste. These are, if we were a computer, it'd be our keyboard, our
Hmm.
monitor, our mouse. And I watched a video or read about the floating man thought experiment,
Phil Phails at philosophy.
Tell me
where
about this.
if you're a man floating in space and you
Mm.
can't see or smell or hear or taste, and notice all your limbs are stretched out so you can't feel any other thing, do you have an idea of existence or
Right.
self?
Right.
It's this experiment where you take away the peripherals, you
Right.
take away your sensory organs. What is there? And David Chalmers, when I watched a video on him, he was even arguing that AI. I think he was arguing this. I'm reluctant to say, but what I took away was he was saying the organization of data is where consciousness would kind of be realized or kind of
That it
unfold.
would emerge.
Yeah, through organizations of data. And it's that we have to bring in these sensory data, these data sets, this texture data set, the smell data set, this sight data set. We have to organize those and make sense of them, which is where a consciousness kind of becomes.
Right. Right. Except we don't know if that's the case.
We don't know. I
Right.
mean,
And
there's a bunch of people talking about it.
right. Well, and I mean, and that's interesting to like, we, on a certain level, we know we're aware, right? We know we're conscious. And
But would we without all, if a computer was just sitting there, a hard drive sitting there
right,
spinning,
we wouldn't necessarily know that that's conscious. In the same way, I don't even know if you're conscious,
yeah,
right? On a fundamental level, the one of the characteristics of consciousness is it's fundamentally private,
yeah.
right? And
We are the center of all of
right,
our universe. We have a bunch of center of universes.
right, and we have that awareness. It's very difficult to construct any kind of coherent way to operate without assuming that awareness. So I think that's as good as we get as on knowledge of it. But if we have a high threshold of what we call knowledge, right? You know, if I have certainty as my
Yeah,
threshold of
certainty.
knowledge, right?
That's where we're going.
I don't know you have
Right.
consciousness. I know you present in a way that seems to reflect the way when I think of myself as a kind of third, like we have this interesting ability to project ourselves out from ourselves and say, what do I look like to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think we do that even before we look at ourselves in the mirror, right? We have this sort of sense that there are, I notice all these other human beings. They seem to behave in ways I behave.
Right.
And so they probably have consciousness. It's reasonable, right?
Right,
Like
right.
it's a reasonable conclusion that you're conscious.
Right.
But you could not be. You could be as conscious as an AI chatbot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
We get back to that question of, are we in the matrix? Are we in a simulation?
right.
You see that? I've seen that question places, philosophical places.
Yeah, though
Are
I
we
think
sim?
it's interesting that you bring that up because I think that part of what he suggests, because the matrix theory, the simulation theory, is almost like it's another form of idealism, right?
Everything is idea, no physicality.
Right. And there's a part of us that says, well, maybe we're in the matrix and that explains it. But it doesn't, right? Like even if we're in the matrix, we still have this problem of consciousness
Yeah.
and how to explain it. And I think that is what's interesting about this chapter. It's this sort of journey through idealism and saying, even if we assume there are no real objects that we're perceiving, right?
Yeah.
That there is no cup, right?
Right.
That it's all mental constructs on some level. And, you know, we can have an idealism that says it's all mental constructs and it's just floating in the field of mind. Or we could have an idealism that says, you know, there's stuff out there, right? There's reality out there that we don't have any direct access to. So everything we experience about the reality is a construct in the mind. Do you see the difference between those two?
Right.
One is that it's just like
It's
big
not
field of
there,
mind.
and one is it's there. It's just we will never have enough sensory peripherals to really experience it.
Right.
One is it's there. One is it's not even there.
There's no such thing as a cup, right?
Right.
There's just an accumulation of atomic
We're
events,
talking about,
right?
does reality have a ground now?
Right, exactly.
There, it doesn't have a ground, so that's not a cup, or that's the universe.
Right,
You're
but
either picking up a universe, or you're picking up the infinite bottom or the infinite
right,
top.
exactly.
Right.
But we're still in idealism if we're saying there's not actually a cup. The experience of a cup, which is our fundamental experience. I mean, that's I think part of the 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 problem that's being forward here is that when I experience in the world, when I pick up my cup, I'm not experiencing a bunch of metal and whatever this stuff is
It's
on
not the
the
parts. Yeah,
right. It's
you're
not that part.
experiencing the
I'm
whole.
experiencing a cup, right?
Yeah.
And that's a thing I experience.
Yeah.
Um,
You're in the conventional truth. When you talk about the two truths,
right,
the absolute truth of emptiness,
right,
or the conventional truth of, I'm Philip, you're Grant, we're hanging out, we're talking.
right.
We're not gonna be like, oh, it's just emptiness sitting over there, so I'm just gonna zen out.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's cool.